What a great 2 games in the conference championship, and we got our Super Bowl. Not to mention the fact that we have so many great college basketball games. We're all talking about that on today's episode of The Extra Point, and it starts right now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Extra Point. I'm your host, Griffin Barfield, hashtag panelist/panelist 2. I'm here at the panelist desk. I got 3 great guys with me. I got Sam Walters, Toby Corriston, Brian Warner, the usual suspects, guys. Welcome back to the show. Why don't we get right back in it? But we're going to start in the NBA. And we had another historic performance, and that was with Dallas Mavericks guard Luka Doncic. He dropped 73 points on Friday night, which is the most since Kobe Bryant scored 81 in the game over 20 years ago. So just another historic performance from another fantastic player. Guys, what is your hashtag to this?
You got it. Lead off. All right. I know Toby used this one, I believe it was last week for the Joel Embiid, and I'm going to just repeat it. It's a great tag. Hashtag Mamba mentality. This was exactly 4 years from the death of Kobe. If I'm correct, I know Devin Booker looked up to him. Did Luka look up to him as well? I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone looked up to Kobe.
I'm sure he did.
And for him to come, 8 points from Kobe's record, it was almost like honoring him in a way. And even if he would have broken it, I think people would have still honored it the same way. It's not like it's sour. It's not anything. It's something that everyone looks forward to and everyone keeps striving for. And I think it was so cool to see the closest game by anyone ever to come that close to the 81 points. I think it was so cool to see, especially on that anniversary. So I think it was a good tribune.
Yeah, I have hashtag Luka Magic. This is just, it's not something that Luka does consistently, but it's pretty darn close. It ties the 4th most points ever in a single game by a player, which is really, really cool. And then he also had a true shooting percentage of over 90%, which is just insane. I mean, the average for point guards is like 50-some. In the NBA. So it was just a really cool, historic night, and really cool to go back and watch.
Yeah. My hashtag for that performance is hashtag another one, so a little DJ Khaled reference. But, we see so far, even in this past stretch of a month, such insane amount of high-scoring performances. So we have another one with Luka. We just had Joel Embiid, Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm sure there's more that I've probably forgot about. But it's players are putting up so many more, and it seems like this is happening even more in this season in particular, maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but, I think it's really exciting. I think it's cool because they're scoring a lot more points, and it's really fun to watch those performances. And I think that within the end of this season, maybe another one, the Kobe's second-place record will be broken. So, a hot take maybe, but yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to take with the 3 I'm going to say hashtag generational. I mean, the dude's only, 24, 25 years old. I think that he still has an MVP waiting for him at some point. But I believe it was like Toby said, it was one of the greatest scoring performances. I think the scoring efficiency was one of the best ever, which is just incredible to note. And he's a triple-double machine. He's eats, sleeps, and breathes Dallas Mavericks. I'm sure Mark Cuban loves having him. And I'm sure we're going to see another performance like this. Like you said, Sam, I see another 50-point, 60-point performance by somebody in the NBA
Absolutely.
At some point. But we'll see what happens with that. Maybe we'll get another historic performance next week because we had Joel Embiid last week, and this week we have Luka. But we'll move on real quick because I know these guys are pretty antsy to talk about it, especially the man down there. So why don't we get into a little bit of the sore stuff, and that's the AFC Championship. For those that did not watch, the Kansas City Chiefs went into Baltimore, shut down Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense, and walked away with a win, moving to their second straight Super Bowl with hopes to go back-to-back. That's pretty much all I need to say about that, guys. What is your hashtag to the Ravens Chiefs?
I want you guys to start first because I'm still at a loss of words. So I'm going to let you guys go. I'm still trying to figure out my hashtag right now because there's so many I could put down, and I'm not going to fill my board.
You do that.
I'll lead off. Hashtag run the ball. There's a lot of things I could say about this game, and I'm sure they'll be said later in a few minutes. But the Ravens just needed to run the ball. I think they ran the ball 8 times when it wasn't Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
And not that it's an identity of their team, but you can't win a game when you run the ball 8 times unless you have an incredible passing performance.
Right.
It's just it's not. I know the NFL is a pass-first league now, but they completely abandoned the run, and I don't know if they just panicked or thought it was the best way to beat the Chiefs, but it just did not work out for them clearly, as they only put up 10 points.
They got to play their strengths, you know, and that's just not necessarily their identity because that changes so much, but that's their strength. And you see Isaiah Pacheco, I think he had 12 carries, I forget, he put up a good amount of yards and he got a touchdown or 2, but he ran the ball more than anybody else did on their team. Besides, Lamar Jackson I think he got 8 carries for like 50 yards. So, yeah, absolutely. And I say for mine, #BabyGoat, Patrick Mahomes does it again. Like I said on the last episode, you have like approved top defense in the league, but you come against somebody like Patrick Mahomes, who's a proven winner, and he makes things happen no matter who's on his team, his receiving core. If he has off days where he doesn't connect with Travis Kelce, which he did, I think he had 11 receptions for 100 and something yards and a score with him. So if you have a day like that where he's not limited by the Ravens secondary, and you get a running game as well, you can't beat them. And it was a close game, like the Zay Flowers getting the punch out right at the goal line. You know, that could have been something that would have equalized the game. But with Patrick Mahomes able to just play and make things happen how he can, nobody else can do it. And you get another ring this year, maybe another one in the next 2 years, and you got to start seriously considering him for being up there. You know, not Tom Brady, because it's obviously that's 7 rings, but it's getting there fast.
As of now, I'm sure we've all seen the graphics of their first 6 seasons compared. He's had a better first 6 seasons than Brady, especially if he gets this next ring.
Right.
Yeah, you just got to, you have to appreciate his greatness. He came in from a backup spot, and in his first season, he made the ACC. Every season that he's been in, he's made the ACC championship, or AFC championship.
Vile.
I'm talking about the wrong conference. It's just
insane.
It's greatness. But for me, I'm doing #young mistakes. And I have to call out Zay Flowers. He had the huge catch, and then he taunted on the receiver, or not the receiver, on the defensive back, L'Jarius Sneed. And then a couple plays later, he had the catch running in the end zone, dove in, ball popped out. They are rookie mistakes, and it's unfortunate that they just came at a bad time. I've been high on Zay Flowers all season. I loved him in college. I loved him in the draft. Any team that got him was getting a stud. And you saw flashes of that. But, I wish nothing but, the best for him. I hope that, he gets better, which I know that he will. He's the Ravens wide receiver 1 for a good amount of time. And I'm excited to see what he does and how he bounces back from this.
I rewrote my hashtag like 17 times while you guys were talking, so I apologize for not making eye contact. I could only come up with 3 question marks. There are so many questions I have about this game. It doesn't make sense. The referee selection, the fact that the Ravens got away from the ball. And I'm not blaming the refs, I'm just saying there's so many different question marks to this. If you don't know, the referee they picked was Sean Smith. And I looked up, and there's some stats that you got to look.
Wow. He favors the home team, right?
You realize how much he favors it?
You know, you guys were
like 60%.
You guys were the home team.
He favors the away team. He doesn't favor the home team. He favors the away team. So I'm just going to set out some stats. I'm not saying it's all the refs' fault because the Ravens literally. Okay, let me start with the Ravens stats, and then I'll bring them in the ref. The Ravens had the #1 rushing offense in the entire NFL. They averaged 31.1 rushes per game, and in that game alone, they had 16 total. 16 total rushing attempts, including scrambles.
Right? Yeah.
No,
that's including.
8 weren't even designed. Runs.
But it was
And then their top running back, who has 13 touchdowns on the year, had 3 carries. His first carry was 15 yards. I think he ended with 24 because they didn't run the ball. You have this whole scenario where you're running it every single week. You just ran on the Texans for like 200 some odd, 300 some odd yards against a decent running defense. The Chiefs are 28th in run defense, I think #1 in passing, if not really close to #1, and you throw it?
And I could understand them doing that in the first half if they're looking at the film, they see something that they don't like. But
typically, it's feeling each other out,
after
right?
Up 7 points in the first half.
And the defense, and if you're looking at the defense, held the Chiefs to 3 points in 3 quarters. Forget the first quarter. Everyone comes out slow. Ravens came out slow against the Texans, 10-10 in the half. They gave up 3 points, which is why it sucks that Mike McDonald's leaving because I absolutely love him, and I have a hot take that I think John Harbaugh should be moved upstairs. to the office, and they should have hired Mike McDonald, a 36-year-old mastermind at defense.
I like that.
They should have, and they didn't, and they missed it. And Steve Bisciotti's becoming the new Angelos family, in my opinion, which I'm so happy the Orioles got sold, but that's a whole different topic. Like, it's just, there's so many questionable decisions that have revolved around this game. If I told you right now that Lamar threw for more yards against the Chiefs than Josh Allen did in their divisional game, would you believe me?
I mean, it depends what I know about how many yards Josh Allen had. I mean, because if I compared the two, Josh Allen really, he doesn't throw for 300-yard games anymore. He's a big two-way guy. I would expect, I expect similar. I expect Lamar to throw, 240, 230?
Josh Allen
I'd see Josh Allen for 270, 280.
Josh Allen threw for 186.
Yeah.
Rushed for 60-some, 70-some. Lamar threw for 272.
Yeah, 272.
Why is he throwing for 272 yards when he just rushed for, 150 or whatever it was, 110, whatever he had? There are so many question marks, and this is probably why no one wanted to hire Todd Monken as a head coach. He just doesn't have the discipline to – he has great offensive coordinator, don't get me wrong. But when your head coach and your offensive coordinator get away from their main scheme, and it's happened before, and it's happened under another offensive coordinator, Greg Roman against the Titans, they went away from their run, lost the game 28-12. Against the Bengals last year, you with your backup QB, backup. I'm telling you, he made the Pro Bowl, but that was only because 7 people decided to get out of the Pro Bowl because no one wants to play in it anymore, which is a whole different conversation. And J.K. Dobbins goes off in the first quarter. Great. I think he had a touchdown. He was running out. He's coming back from an injury, and Greg Roman never gives him the ball the rest of the game. They just go into a throwing motion. Every game they've lost at the end, albeit Lamar has had to grow from it and he's had mistakes, the coaching is what's questionable. And now that there's a new offensive coordinator and the same thing's happening, you're really starting to look at, well, it wasn't the offensive coordinator. Maybe it's the head coach. Because you won under both offensive coordinators. You led the league in rushing
Why
under
is it
both
the
offensive
offensive
coordinators.
coordinator?
Because,
they had
like I
two
said,
different ones.
No, I mean,
they've had two different offensive
for that
coordinators.
game, for this game. For that game.
I think it's the head coach making the decision because he says who goes in. You didn't even use Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook went off on a 15 or 20-yard run on his first carry under the Ravens on the Texans.
Right.
And you don't even use him. You sign him going, I think this is going to be a pivotal use. He's going to be a pivotal key player in our system. And then he doesn't even touch the field. That's not an offensive coordinator. That's a head coach. Because you had plays where you could use Dalvin Cook. You had plays you could use Justice Hill. He's our 5th running back, or whatever you want to call it, 4th. It's a lot of question marks on that side. And so between that and the fact that the Chiefs punted more than the Ravens, which I didn't even know, they punted 6 times, had 6 drives, punted 6 times, never scored a point. That whole thing is a question mark to me. And then I get to the NFL part. And I know a lot of you disagree. And after looking at it for a few days, I've kind of calmed down on my stance. I still think there is something towards rigging for the business side of it because ESPN posted a day later that the NFL would make 3.
Yeah. No,
I'm just saying the NFL would make the NFL. Why would ESPN post the very next day saying the NFL would make $330 million from a Taylor Swift Super Bowl?
Because it's a crazy statistic.
Because it's just a crazy
Why not
amount.
wait a while? It just makes it so coincidental.
Well,
so if you look at the,
you can't.
That's an outside media organization.
So
You can't-
are you
it's like,
telling
you can't-
are you telling me the NFL is scripted?
I think
You're
there is a strong case of why it should, why it is.
I agree.
If you look at this, they chose Sean Smith. The one that favors away teams, and I'm going to read off some stats because I have a lot of stats and a lot of missed.
Yeah, but they chose.
It didn't affect this game.
But they
It
chose.
did.
It did not.
They had 2 missed calls that both resulted in.
Whoa. Okay, so I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yes,
the taunting
yes.
wasn't taunting. He pushes him into the ground.
The taunting was taunting.
Okay, so then what
was
call are you
taunting.
talking
They didn't call the taunting on Travis Kelce.
It wasn't
15
taunting.
plays before.
It wasn't taunting.
When you hit a player, when you push a player.
I know exactly what play you're talking about.
No, there were multiple. When you push a player.
Travis Kelce, the only taunting that got called when Travis Kelce was going at it with the Ravens was when, who was it?
Kyle Van Noy hit him.
Yeah, and he came in helmet to helmet. You can't do that in the NFL. He came in, crown of his helmet, and he hit Travis Kelce in the head. It wasn't hard, but it's going to be a taunting
Zay
call.
Flowers has done that move, not thousands, obviously that's an exaggeration, probably about 5 other
They were
times.
already arguing, and then he came in out of nowhere with the ref right in front of him. The retaliation is always going to get called.
There is no retaliation.
That's the problem with the Ravens came out in this game and tried to bully the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs got under their skin,
Yeah.
and they couldn't figure it out.
Absolutely.
The Ravens were inexperienced. They didn't know how to play this game, and they figured, hey, we can come out and play bully ball and beat the Chiefs into the ground. And the Chiefs was like, no, we know how to get under your skin. We've seen that bully ball before. We're not going to.
They were undisciplined.
They've been here before.
It started
They've been
with
here
Justin
before.
Tucker. And Travis Kelce knew
Uh-huh.
exactly what he was doing because he knew there were cameras all around. He throws Justin Tucker stuff. All right, that gets the Ravens fired up. But they've never been here before. Ravens fired up.
And
they want to beat them.
the Chiefs-
and it's going to cause some inexperience.
The Chiefs, besides them being, it was
goes
where
right
was
back to
where
the
was it?
coach.
It was in
M&T Bank. It's
yeah, it was in Baltimore. But like the Chiefs, the amount of pressures between each team, like Chiefs been there every year. They're there every year.
Yeah.
Ravens haven't. When's the last time they were in the AFC Championship?
2012, 2011.
It's been a while. So like,
Super Bowl one.
I like to think the Chiefs are like, we're here. Like even though it's an away game, and you can't play that way. Now I will say, Griffin, not to shoot down your hashtag, but I think the punch out, like that wasn't Zay Flowers' fault. I think that was like, you look at L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, those are fantastic secondary players. And he made it. It's unfortunate. It sucks.
However,
He should hold on to the ball, but I don't think it was like he just didn't care enough to hold on to the ball.
Yeah.
He made a good play.
I agree
It's a
with
good
you,
play.
but I think he
great
cared
play.
way too much. I think you have to know in that situation as a
Ball
wide receiver,
security,
it's
yeah.
2nd and 8. You either go down on the 2 or maybe
Right.
reach out and get the touchdown.
He's a
The risk-reward
22-year-old
isn't
rookie
very good.
playing in an AFC Championship in his new team's home.
Yeah, no, it's very, very tough.
will
He wants to make the
But
play.
he's been fantastic.
But that's
Yeah.
what lost the Ravens the game.
But you
I
can't
will
even
also
blame
say this,
Zay.
though.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good.
And I know it's not hashtag young mistakes, but I will call out Lamar Jackson for that triple coverage throw to Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
100%.
No, it was Isaiah Likely.
Isaiah Likely.
Isaiah Likely was also
apologize.
pushed in the back before the ball got there.
No.
You see in
tried
that
to-
was
That wasn't off. He called for the ball.
He calls for the ball, and the ball gets thrown behind him. He goes to slow down, and he gets a little
No.
bump with the defender going like that as the ball's getting caught.
You think
Here's
that's
the
a
thing.
PI?
Here's the thing with
watched
football.
it back.
100%.
It's not-
In this
He
game,
can't turn around and catch it. Even if he got ripped to the ground, it's an uncatchable football.
Yeah.
did you not watch the tape?
Here's the
the
thing.
ball's
I
going
did. I
directly
just
in
watched
between.
it.
Isaiah
It was
Likely's
not
coming
going
across.
between at
That will
all.
tell you right now. Isaiah
It was
Likely's
not
coming
going
across the
Spark
ball.
to fire.
Isaiah Likely is coming across the middle. He throws it directly at his
was
body.
behind him.
He was going
Barely.
The ball, he was going diagonally. The ball would have, if he was going straight, then the ball would have hit him. But
It
he was
wasn't-
going like
It was
this,
a
the
bad
would've
ball,
been
though.
behind
It was
him.
a bad ball. It was good
The
coverage.
ref goes to pull his flag and then goes, you know what? Never mind. I'm not going to
He
call
did
it.
not go there.
I will say.
There is a video out there. You
So
have to
he
go-
stopped because he was like, oh, wait, Taylor
geez,
Swift?
Taylor Swift, 300 million.
Yeah.
I'll say this, and then we'll move on to the next.
Oh,
one.
I got 100% more stats to like throw out there.
It's
I
it's
think we-
tough.
There were about
If
7
you're a
other missed
team
calls.
that's gone to 6
Yes, they were.
straight AFC Championship experience builds,
Yeah.
I think it's unless you are a complete superstar, which Joe Burrow was able to do, regardless of what you think. I know both of you are AFC South ends, and I think that he's a fantastic
I did,
quarterback.
absolutely.
It's very tough to do, and I really think the Chiefs are going to the game with nothing to lose.
I agree. Absolutely.
I think they had nothing to lose in Buffalo.
Don't have to worry. The
I
refs
think
gonna
they had
win.
nothing to lose in
The
Baltimore.
refs did not affect the outcome of the game, Brian.
I
gonna
don't.
say that. Go
You guys
ahead.
put up 10 points.
The wide shoot.
The refs control game. Like, I mean, I know we're going really off cut, but the Clemson Duke basketball game, you keep the game so close that the refs are going to make an impact. That's why.
The refs
If you're gonna keep the game-
always
Dude,
make an
but we
impact.
got
The refs-
so many
you can
turnovers
go
at the end
look
of
at
that
any
game,
game
though.
and be like, the refs favored this one team. Maybe, yes, but the refs are just trying to
You
do
can
their
look
job.
at every
It's
single
tough.
game, look at the differences in calls, and say, oh, they favored this team just because they called for them more. That doesn't mean
when a
that there
ref
was like the
has-
intention.
When a
of them
ref has a
calling for that
history,
game.
No.
a history of doing this, 40% of home teams do not win.
That
37% don't even.
40%?
40% of the home teams don't win, or they're called against.
Yeah.
For-
they
no,
don't
so
win.
there's a okay.
Because then that's different. Because
Here-
you can.
here you
look-
go.
You can
Ready?
look at
We'll
one
say this
game.
statistic, and then we'll move on to the next one.
In the
Yes.
last 3 years under Sean Smith, home teams have won only 40.8% of their
Dude,
games.
that's
under
nearly
every
50-50.
ref. Under every ref, it's
hold on.
55.
But so you're looking. So
It gets
you're-
deeper
so
than
it's
that.
a 5%. It's a 5% standard deviation.
Yeah.
Correct. It's five. Or
It's 55%
that might be
towards the
wrong.
home.
That
It's a
statistic, people
15%
don't get mad at me.
decrease.
It's a 5% decrease.
It's a 15% decrease. It's not a standard deviation. 55% of teams win. Home teams
What
win.
games? What games were those? Because
It's all between 2018.
There's only.
Then you look at the
So-
point spread.
They're just looking. They're looking at the vast amount of games
correct.
that the referee, the main official Sean Smith, has refed in, and he's been here for.
And if you want to go further into the point spread over it, I don't know, I think I have it in here. The point spread
How many
is
times-
typically about 50%. 49% home teams will cover the point spread.
How many times has he been selected for the playoffs though? When it's not the Chiefs. Like,
Honestly,
are people
I've-
arguing
He's
about
a
it?
typical playoff referee.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think we'll
So
see
I
him
don't
pick
I
games.
think it's bad argument because people don't like the Chiefs' narrative.
I
that's the argument. It's
I
the
also
narrative
think
argument.
I also think that you said 40% of the time the
That's losing.
repeat
Yes.
it. Like what's the stat? Repeat that stat again.
It was 40% of the home teams that he refs win the game. Not like only 40% win the game. rather than
Right, but like
55 usually.
you have to look like statistically, besides like betting odds, whatever.
Yeah.
Like logically, it's 50-50. One team's gonna win, one other team's gonna
Correct.
win.
You
So
can have a
that's
non-
not. It's not like 17% of the time, almost like every team loses. It's 40%.
But then you
That's
look
like
at the point spread, and
it's
the point
negligible.
spread. The point spread they use shows how good a team is typically, right? It shows how good a team should be.
It's the ref's
And so
fault. Zay
typically-
Flowers fumbled
lot of
though,
math.
because that would have upped the score.
No, he called a taunting call that shouldn't have been called.
You could do this with any game, though. You could make this
You could do
argument
this with a lot
for
of
any
you
game.
could do this with a lot of games.
Correct, but when you have two PI calls on Isaiah, like where he's tackled in the middle of the field,
It's not a PI.
you have two PI calls possibly on Odell Beckham.
I know the
you
PI
have
you're
two.
talking about.
You
the
have
one that
two
he
holding
hooked
calls on
before
Trey
the-
Smith.
The hooking call before the interception that wasn't called. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the one where Isaiah likely was tackled in the middle of the field.
Yeah, the ball was uncatchable. He got tackled as the ball was midair.
He was
flying
hit
out of
in
bounds.
contact. It was illegal contact. He was hit in contact while Lamar still was in his throwing
it's
motion.
It's gonna go in
wasn't a
circles.
foul.
You're
It
not gonna
wasn't
get
a
anything
foul.
out
It
of
wasn't a
this.
foul. Griffin?
We'll move on. Yeah. Speaking of, well, not speaking of, but we'll move over to the NFC. We'll move over from going from Baltimore to San Fran, going from east to west, and let's talk about the Detroit Lions. They were up 24-7 going into the half, and they eventually would go on to lose. And that comes from a plethora of different things, with whether fourth down calling, drop passes, the inability to close out the game. And yeah, we're going to get a rematch of the Super Bowl of 2020 between the Niners and the Chiefs. So for my hashtag, because I will go first, and it's just for a joke, it is hashtag 1-800-GAMBLER in honor of Dan Campbell and all of
Fantastic.
the allegations that he's like, I gambled, I lost, and there were tweets that Dan Campbell hits on 17 and 18 when they played blackjack, which I thought was funny. I'm just going to flat out say it's not Dan Campbell's fault. He's there for a reason. He's made this aggressive play calling for a reason. I really thought that the team lost due to plenty of dropped passes, especially in the latter half of the game. And the 49ers are just a more experienced team. It's the same narrative of the Ravens-Chiefs game where a team's there a lot more. You're going to have a lot more experience, especially in championship games. Stress, pressure comes a lot up. I think the Lions will be back, but the 49ers were the better team, and they executed better.
I just said hashtag kick it. I'm kind of on the same page as you. Dan Campbell, you got to stop gambling with that. I mean, you got to stop going. I get when there's a certain point when you're trying to build an identity, but when your identity is already pretty much built for the season at least, you don't want to gamble that away. You want to play smart. I do it on Madden all the time.
His
I'll go for
identity, his identity is gambling it away.
But that's when you're building identity, because you want to build that toughness. You want to build hey, you want to play for me because we're going to go for it no matter what. But then once you hit that point, there's a certain, it's like the Ravens going away from their scheme. There's a certain point where you don't try to risk it all. And that's all I'm trying to say. It's
Ford, not so tough. Instead of Ford built tough, Ford not so tough. It was a disappointing showing from the Lions. I think America was rooting for them. They went up. I had an intramural basketball game at 8 that night. I watched them go up 24-7, and then I came out of the game, and it was 24-21, I think.
That is awful.
It sucked because I feel like I caused it. But I do not mind what Dan Campbell did. They went for it the second most times on fourth down this entire season. They've gone for it 40 times. The only team that did it more was the Carolina Panthers, and I'm sure that's because they were losing every game in the fourth quarter, so they had to go for it. I don't mind the calls. I think that's what they do. Sure, you look at hindsight, he should have kicked it, should have gone up. But I think what you were saying is you made the wrong point, is the Ravens went away from their identity, and that's why they lost the game. The Lions kept their identity, and that's why they lost the game. And sometimes that happens. I don't mind the calls. It's not like he made an egregious, we're on our own 20-yard line, we're going for it. He didn't make an egregious call. You look back and think, they lost by 3, should have kicked it. Yeah, but at the same time, if they get it, they score a touchdown, they go run away with the game, they get the momentum back on their side, you're like, hey, that was a great fourth down call. So, yeah, it looks bad now, but I don't mind it, and I think Dan Campbell's done a great job. We love this team, and I'm sure they'll be back right around contention again next year.
for my hashtag, I did hashtag draft a receiver because I think you look at it a couple ways of. I'm not surprised with the calls that Dan Campbell made, and I expect it, and I think it's like you're sticking to that. Was it the best time? Like, you look back, hindsight's 20/20, and you can look back and try to change it, but that's what he does. That's what he does, and it got him to the NFC Championship. So you put it in a situation where balls that should be caught. I'm talking about Josh Reynolds, maybe even Khalif Raymond, who are. They're both competing for that number 2, number 3 slot, but you have a draft pick, like a late first rounder. You have maybe even the second round with how many receivers are in this draft class to snag some guy to kind of fill that spot, some guy that can catch the ball. With Amon-Ra St. Brown being what do you think of him more as possession receiver? Do you think he's a physical receiver?
I think
kind of both.
I'll take it. I think he's a slot possession receiver.
Yeah.
That can make incredible plays after the catch.
Yeah. So I think deep threat.
I don't think he's.
You
I
don't
think
think he's deep
Jameson
threat?
Williams is your deep threat.
Right. Yeah. Okay. J-Mo was great. J-Mo was great. Whole playoffs. Almost forgot about him. J-Mo was great. The whole playoffs, even just since he came back, he's been a big part of them. I think if you do get another receiver, you can draft one. I forgot about J-Mo before I did this. You can draft a receiver. You could even sign one, but someone to fill that gap, because if you get those crucial downs and you're not looking at Amon-Ra or Jameson Williams, you're looking at Josh Reynolds. And you mess that up, then you need somebody there to secure that ball at the end of the day.
Yeah, and another questionable decision that I thought, especially because it was not Dan Campbell-esque, was at the end of the first half when they were on the goal line and he chose to kick a field goal. I really thought that was a weird
That was
play.
interesting.
Yeah.
Especially with the way that he switched and.
Because they would have gone up 31, or they would have gone up 28.
28-7.
That's a big difference.
That would have been the knockout blow.
Yeah.
But you got to study both these games. I didn't really look a lot into it. But I'm sure both teams will be back, whether the Ravens, whether the Lions. They're returning a lot of key pieces, key coaches. So we'll see what happens with that. We won't do our pick for the Super Bowl until next week. We'll have a whole Super Bowl show here next week on the Extra Point. But let's get into some college basketball pick'em. First time this year, or I'm trying to think. I really don't remember. But we got a handful of top 10 games, 4 top 10 games that we are going to talk about. And the first one, we are going to take a look in Kansas. We have the number 4 Houston Cougars, 19-2 on the year so far. They're traveling to Allen Fieldhouse to take on the 17-4 Jayhawks, who are ranked number 8 in the country. It's very tough to win in Kansas, but if anybody could do it, it's Houston. Who do you guys got?
I got Kansas. I think the Jayhawks are going to have a really, really good home field advantage. Houston's going to be good. They're going to be coming in. They're hot right now, but I see Kansas taking it.
Yeah, I'm going Kansas as well. I think Kevin McCullough is really the key. He was out with an injury last game, but it was more of a rest. It's not really an injury. So if he's healthy, I think Kansas is going to win at home. It's tough to beat a blue blood at home. We learned that as Clemson fans the other day. But yeah. Houston is a really, really good team. They haven't played as much competition, and they don't always have as much competition before the tournament. But, they're going to give Kansas a good run. I think it'll come down to the buzzer, but give me Kansas at home.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Jayhawks. I think at home is a tough matchup, especially, in Kansas specifically for them playing. I think this is probably one of, if not their toughest matchup yet, because Houston is really good. But I think that they will have a game to kind of bounce up even farther in the rankings to kind of prove themselves out of here. Because if they can win that game, do you see Houston stay? I mean, I assume they'd stay in the top 10.
Yeah.
You think so? Jayhawks, they can move up a few spots, but I think this is a dominant win to go out with to set the tone for the rest of the season if they can get it. And I think at home that they're going to do it.
Kansas are coming off a tough loss to Iowa State on Saturday, and I think you could say this about the Big 12. Any team that's at home is going to be a favorite, no matter who you are. If you are an unranked team, you probably have an advantage over a top team.
Yeah.
Regardless. That's why I'm taking Kansas. It's been a tough place to play ever since Bill Self took the helm. Toby, like you said, McCullers is back. I expect Hunter Dickinson to have a big game, but I am not surprised if this goes either way. I love Houston as a team, great defensive. I love their pace. But yeah, that one's at 4:30 on Saturday. But right after we have perhaps one of the best rivalries in college sports, and that is Duke, North Carolina. The number 7 Duke Blue Devils coming off a win over Clemson. They beat Clemson, and they also beat, I'm blanking on who they beat the other day. Virginia Tech in VT. They will be traveling to Chapel Hill to take on the number 3 Tar Heels, who just took a tough loss to Georgia Tech last night. So North Carolina coming in a little pissed off. Duke's got the momentum. Who takes it? This is the UNC.
Give me UNC. Another blue blood at home. I think that always is a contributing factor. And we also just saw Duke play Clemson, and they did not look good. Like, I think Duke is overhyped, as they always are, because it boosts ratings. But I just don't think Duke is that good. I think R.J. Davis versus Jeremy Roach is going to be a very, very fun matchup. And whoever plays better, I think that team will win. And R.J. Davis has been the best guard in college basketball up until this point, or if not the best, one of the best. And I think he's going to have a big night at home. He's going to get the crowd into it, and they're going to roll over Duke.
You take it?
Again, all right, so I wanted to bring some fun to it because I kind of got heated in that last start. So I'm going to bring some fun to this. I haven't drawn a picture in a while, so I tried my best because I can't draw a ram. So I did a Tar Heel,
The foot.
Tried my best, like I said. You try it. You try stuff, see if you're good at it. I have UNC winning. That Georgia Tech loss was surprising. You could probably see it with some of the other wins they had. They beat Clemson overtime, or double overtime.
Duke, yeah, they beat Duke.
It's a bunch of impressive wins. I don't remember the coach's name, but it's his first year coaching, and he has a bunch of impressive wins.
Damon Stoudemire.
Stoudemire, yep. And so, for me, I think UNC is going to be ticked off. I think they're going to be they're going to want to prove the country wrong, because, the rankings come out. I never know when the actual ranking, Monday?
I wouldn't be surprised if Duke is ahead of North Carolina in the rankings.
I think UNC is going to win, and
The rankings won't change.
They won't change.
They switch off every Monday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, every Monday.
So my bad.
That's where I was trying to remember, because I'm so used to football where it's it changes every week, and it's new game, new ranking. But I have UNC going in. They're going to be ticked off. They're going to be wanting to prove that they're not just, like last year. I think was it last year in the March Madness when they were supposed to go in, and all of a sudden the last 6 games they fell apart, and it just all went down. So I think they're going to try and prove that they're not the same team as last year. But
Okay, I'll stick with my pick. I chose Duke at first, but I went back, chose UNC. I think the bottom line for this game is UNC is going to come in this, especially at home, and they're going to play to refuse to lose, especially against Duke as such a rivalry game, and so how crucial it is for them being both top teams right now. Especially with that home, if it was Duke at home against UNC, I was kind of sliding more towards Duke. But with UNC being home, that's who I'd pick in this match.
Were they home with Georgia Tech?
They were at Georgia Tech.
The only thing I'll say is these two teams hate each other so much is that Duke is not playing with nothing to lose, but when you go to the other team, you're going all out. You want to be the villain, and when you're at home, you're like, shoot, we can't lose this at home. So there's a little bit more pressure on UNC than Duke.
Yeah.
I will say this, so if you are defending your stadium against a bitter rival, you're not losing. Stylistically, I like UNC over Duke. Duke really can't defend the pick and roll that well at all, and that's all R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot do. Duke also don't have a big man, and Kyle Filipowski gets in foul trouble a lot. I really think Armando Bacot's going to have a huge game, and they don't really have a 5. Filipowski plays the 4. You got Ryan Young at the 5, but I don't trust Ryan Young, especially the way that we played against VT and he played against Clemson. I just like UNC stylistically. I think R.J. Davis, despite the loss, I think he dropped 28 points over Georgia Tech. He's the best guard in the country, in my honest opinion. And I really think UNC's not going to lose at home. I really think they're not. But it's going to be an incredible game. But right after that, we got a nice little triple header on ESPN. So the Duke-North Carolina game's at 6:30. At 8:30, we have 2 teams coming off a tough loss to the same opponent, South Carolina. We got the number 5 Volunteers. They're traveling to Lexington to take on the number 10 Kentucky Wildcats. We got Tennessee. We got Kentucky. 5 versus 10. Who takes it?
This ain't East High, but this is Kentucky. So I'm going to go Wildcats. I believe that's isn't that it? I'm making sure. All right, we don't have Troy. We don't have Troy as playing as the high school, but that's only basketball. I know, I'm joking. But I do have Kentucky going. Anytime you go into a home, I don't care. I feel like rankings, or at least like when it's top 10 rankings, the rankings don't matter if you're both in the top 10 in basketball because there's going to be so much energy in the building. That's anyone. So I think especially with Tennessee coming in, Kentucky, Tennessee are big rivals. They're going to be going in at each other. I think Kentucky's home field advantage will help them win. And so I'm going to have the Wildcats over the Volunteers.
I'm going with Kentucky as well. I'm sticking with the Blue Bloods at home. It's just such an advantage in these games to be at home. And Kentucky is still a young team. So this might be the game I'd be most worried about my pick is because Kentucky has such a young team. They haven't played as many of these top opponents. They've played some, and they've shown that they can play them tough. But I'm a little bit wary of them. However, I think playing at home, defending your home court against a rival, they're once again going to get the job done. But it's going to be close, and I think they're going to have some slow points, especially in the start of the game, where they look a little bit shaky.
Yeah, I agree. I'm also going to go Kentucky. I like this matchup, especially for Kentucky. Like you said, being at home is always helpful for Kentucky, especially. But you have a matchup with Tennessee, and they have a good defense, but I think ultimately I've seen Kentucky as kind of they've been lower on the board for most of the year, and I've seen them. They have a really talented roster. They've played really well this season, and I think that they've kind of just been a sleeper for me in my mind most of the year, and I think that they'll take this upset.
Kentucky, a very young team, so experience gives them losses, but they are such a deep team. They are such a deep team. I really love Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd, always come off the bench. Reed Shepherd is an incredible three-point shooter, and Robert Dillingham is just an incredible playmaker. So they just have on all levels, and I really think Tennessee's very top-heavy. Dalton Knecht is one of the best forwards in the country. I forget how much he had against South Carolina yesterday. I think he was like 28. Yep. He's just incredible, and Zakai Ziegler, just the whole nine. I really think Kentucky, home field's huge. Home court's huge. I think Kentucky does take it.
And it's also huge. You mentioned how good of a three-point shooter he is. To have that coming off the bench, like your starting five, they don't look as great. It's a little bit of a slow start. Come out, bring somebody off the bench, make a couple threes, get the crowd back into it, and then all of a sudden it's a whole different game.
Exactly. The bench is so huge in college basketball because you take so few, but all it takes is 2 or 3 plays, and the crowd is right back up in it, and it can change the game. Basketball's a game of runs. That's all I can really say. But yeah, that's the triple header on ESPN, and then the next day, on this Sunday, we got another one between 2 top 6 teams in the country. It's number 2 Purdue, led by Naismith Player of the Year, reigning Naismith Player of the Year, Zach Edey, traveling to Madison, Wisconsin to take on the number 6 Wisconsin Badgers. One of the most surprising teams in the country so far, and they are at the top of the Big Ten. So it's 1 versus 2 in the Big Ten. It's in Madison. Who takes it?
Boiler up. I've preached home field advantage, or home court advantage, and I think it'll once again play into this. I think this is going to be a very close game. However, Zach Edey is the best player in college basketball. He's so good. His footwork has gotten so much better over the past 3 years or so. Purdue knows how to win. They've been in these spots. They don't know how to win in the tournament, but they know how to win in these situations. They know how to get the job done. You know, Wisconsin has been a surprise. I really like their team. They've made a fun run so far this season, kind of came out of nowhere. But you're going to run into these games where you're like, you just play a better team than you. Even when you're on this fantastic run, you're going to run into a team that's better than you. And they absolutely could upset Purdue. I just don't see it happening. Purdue's going to stay as one of the top teams in the country, and they're going to keep the conference.
Yeah. I'll let you finish your drawing, Brian.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to take Purdue as well. I think home field advantage is huge. I think Zach Edey, he's a difference maker for their team, and this is also coming into this year, and especially looking at it now, they're coming for the tournament and to win in the tournament specifically, because if they haven't made those big runs, they need it now, and they can do it now, and they have all the potential to. And I think this is probably my favorite matchup out of the 4 that we've talked about, but I think they'll take it, and I think they're coming for the number 1 seed.
I agree. I think just stylistically, it's going to be so close. I'm just going to take the home team. You can't go wrong with taking the home team. And I watched Purdue last Sunday. They played Rutgers at Rutgers, and Rutgers had their chances, but I just didn't really think they had their quality players. Wisconsin has your quality players. And don't get me wrong, I think Zach Edey is, once again, probably or undisputably a top 3 player in college basketball. Mm-hmm. Undisputedly. He'll be a Naismith finalist, but I really think the quality of Wisconsin, the way that they've played against Big Ten, and it's at home. Wisconsin is crazy at home, especially when it comes to basketball. They haven't had a season like this yet. They're 16-4. Yeah, 16-4 against a 19-2 team. I just have to take the home team there. Like, I really can't. Like, it's going to be deafening in there. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yes.
I went a little extra for this.
Drawing's done?
I went a little extra.
I
I had to
like
go
it.
a little extra. I am going to stick with my trend. I'm going to go home teams, and I'm going to pick 3 upsets this week. I'm kind of actually proud with this because I'm not a good artist. So, like, you know, you can tell what it is.
Yeah.
You know, Wisconsin over, and
I like the
did I help you can have
sideburns.
the?
I like the sideburns on the
Yeah.
Badger.
It looks like
ears.
a
I think
looks
those
like,
are
looks like
ears,
a little bit of a mushroom if the hair on the side. was
Yeah, a
there.
little bit.
That's funny.
It's like you could do hair, you could do ears, whatever you might want to think it. But the sideburns on the Badger. Thank you. So I'm gonna go Badgers. I think it's another home field. Like I said, top 10 matchup. You have no matter what the ranking is, home field's gonna be tough. Like it's not football where if you're in a mode like it just sticks. Like basketball flops so much back and forth. Georgia Tech and North Carolina is a great prime example. Georgia Tech. Well, actually that one was home, so I'm not gonna bring that one up. But it's just home field is so pivotal, I think, in college basketball, especially because the arena's tight and it's closed. And I think Wisconsin is going to do the upset, produce a great basketball team, one of the best players in all of college basketball. I see Wisconsin. I see the home teams just absolutely dominating the top 10 this year, or this week, or these next few days. Whatever this is.
I think that's why I love college basketball so much is that any team can beat anybody on any given day. 2 top 5 teams lost last night. That's why, I've argued time and time again, March Madness is the greatest tournament in.
That's why it's so
Well, and
hard to
like-
try to predict it because you can't.
Exactly.
In the span of like 2 weeks, didn't somewhere between 10 and 15 of the top 25 teams lose?
Yeah.
Or something crazy. And they were all, this wasn't just
Wild.
like 23, 22, 25. No, this was like 1, 4, 7, whatever
Yeah.
it was like top 10s. So
There was like a day where I think 7 of them lost, maybe. There's been some crazy days so far,
yeah.
which is exciting.
And it's only January. It's January 31st. We get into February tomorrow, but I'm beyond stoked to talk about. We'll have a little March Madness special, but first, next week we'll have our Super Bowl special because that is the end of this episode of The Extra Point. Thank you guys for all tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to Tigervision again for setting this all up. But yeah, stay tuned for next week. We got a whole Super Bowl episode, and we'll see you then. See ya.